Hey, what's up guys? Julio here. And today we're going to be creating a responsive navigation bar with an animated multi-level drop-down. Now let me show you what this is going to look like on smaller screens. When I click on my hamburger menu, I get the navigation, and then when I click on the drop-down, I get the first level, then the second level, and finally the third level. I also have some borders on the left so that you can identify which level you're on. The main focus of this tutorial is going to be the navigation and the drop down, so we're not going to be building this section you see right here. However, I'll be placing the starter files up on GitHub that will include all you see right here. So if you want to follow along, make sure you grab that. Before we begin, I wanted to say that if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. I upload videos every Sunday, so click on the bell icon to be notified whenever a new upload is up. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you smash that like button, or if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. Now, let's jump right in. So once you open up the starter files, this is everything you're going to find inside of it. You have the index.html with some partial code, same thing with the styles, and then an empty scripts.js. I'm only including partial code because the rest of it we're going to be writing our own. So once we're ready to begin, we're going to open up the index, and this is basically all that you should have. Then in between of the comments, you want to start by opening up the header tag. Then we'll have a div with the class of container, nav tags, and then inside of the nav we want to have another div with the class of menu icons. In here we want to have two different icons. The first one will be for the hamburger menu, and that one has the class of icon, ion, md, menu. The second icon will be for the X. That one will have the class of icon, ion, md, close. After we have the icons, as you can see them over here, we can go underneath the menu icons div and we can open up an anchor tag with the class of logo. In here, we want to have another icon. This icon will have the class of icon, ion md, and then restaurant. Underneath of the logo, we want to have a UL with the class of nav list. I'm not going to overcomplicate things by applying a lot of classes, so I'll just keep it simple. I'll do an li, then I'll do an anchor tag, and this one will say home. Now I'll paste this several more times. The second one will say menu. The third one will say our chefs. Then the fourth one will say gallery. Then the fifth one will say blog. Then I'll have one that says contact. And we'll be needing one more. This one is going to be slightly different. It's going to say book a table, and I'm going to apply the class of move right as well as btn only to this particular li because we want to separate from the rest of the ul. So we're going to use some margin to separate it. And we want to make it into a button, so that's why I'm also applying the btn class. Now we want to do the sub menus. So we're going to go to the second li, and underneath it, well, not underneath it, but inside of it, underneath of the anchor tag, we want to have a ul with the class of submenu. Then again, we just need the basic structure, which is going to be the li and then the anchor tag. The anchor tag in this case is just going to say breakfast. Now we can just simply copy this one, paste it down below, and this one will be for lunch, and the third one will be for dinner. Again, we want to have another submenu, so we can just simply grab this submenu and we can go underneath of the lunch a tag and we can just paste it. And this one will say, well, in this case we can just use some dummy text. It doesn't really matter. I can say food, and then here I can just say more. And now inside of here I want to have another submenu, so I'm just going to grab this one and I'm going to paste it underneath of this anchor tag. And now I can just simply change the last one to food. So the only thing left is for us to actually add the little arrow icon to the submenus. So for the first one, what we want to do is find menu, and then inside of this anchor tag we want to have an icon with the class of icon, ion, and then md, and this one will be arrow, and then it's going to be Dropdown. Now we can just copy this icon and we can find the next submenu, which is going to be this one that says lunch. So we're going to go inside of this anchor tag and paste the same icon, and then again for the other submenu where you have the anchor tag that says more. So I know that it was a lot for you guys to take in, so if you need to rewatch that portion of the video, feel free to do so. Now that we have all the submenus set up, we can go ahead and actually start styling it. So we're gonna go inside of the CSS and we can just do the universal selector. We want to do it as well on the before and after. And what we want to do here is a basic reset of the margin and padding, and then we want to set the box sizing to border box. After we've done that, we want to select the HTML document. So what we'll do here is set the font family to Roboto, and we want to set a fallback of sans serif, then a font size of 10 pixels, because we want to use rems. So rems, they scale a lot better than pixels, so when it comes to responsive web design, you would want to use something like rems or ems. I prefer using rems because it's just a lot easier whenever you're doing the math, especially when you set it to 10 pixels. So the next thing I want to do now is select my anchor tags, and I'll just simply say that the text decoration will be set to none. Then I'll select all the ULs since I have a lot of them, and I'll say that the list style will be set to none. Now I can select my header, and this is going to look broken for a little bit until we continue to apply the additional styles for the navigation, so don't worry about it. The width will be set to 100%. The next thing I'll do is give it a position of absolute, And the reason for that is because, as you could see, there was some white space since we have an order. But in this case, we want the navigation or the header to be on top of the background image, so we gave it a position of absolute. And then we can just do top of 0 and left of 0 just to make sure that it stays in that position. Now I want to select my container and I want to give it a width of 100%. Then I'll set a max width of 117 rem. And finally, I'll do a margin 0 of auto to set my container in the middle. Actually, I also want to apply a padding of 0 top and bottom, and then 1.5 rem left and right, just to create a little bit of separation from the edges, as you can see here. The next thing I want to do is select my menu icons div, and I'll apply some styles here. The first one will be my color. I'll set it to EEE. Then I'll say that the font size will be 4 rem. Position here will be set to absolute as well. Then I'll do a top of 50% just to make sure that it's aligned in the middle vertically, and then I'll position it from the right to rem. I want to make sure that I also do a transform translate y of -50% to make sure that it stays right in the middle. Then I'll do a cursor of pointer and a z index of a high value just to make sure it stays on top of all of my other content. Now that I have the basic styles for the menu icons, I can go ahead and hide it. So I'll do a display of none to remove it. The next thing I want to do now is select my nav. So my nav, I'll give a width of 100%. Then I'll give it a fixed height of 8 rem. The next thing I want to do is add a border bottom, as you could see from the demo. So to do that, I can do border bottom of 1 pixel, and it's going to be solid RGBA 225 25 to 25, which is white. And then I want to do an alpha of 0.1 just to make sure that it's really faded. Now I want to style my logo, so I'll select the logo. I'll give it a width of 5 rem. Same thing with the height. And I'll set a background color of EB and then 3007. What I want to do here next is set a display of flex. And the reason for that is because I want to make sure that later on I will be placing my icon right in the middle of it. As you can see, the icon is not in the middle. So as opposed to using justify content, actually it's align item center, and then justify content center to align it, I can simply just remove this, and with less lines of CSS, I can target my logo I and do a margin of auto top and bottom, and as you can see, I get the same result and I don't have to write all the other stuff. Now I'll make my font size 3 rem. Again, the color is going to be EEE. And one thing that I forgot to add to the logo was a border radius. Border radius, where are you? Of 100%. And I also want to add a margin right of 5 rem just to get some separation between the logo and the UL. So now that I've done that, I can go ahead and style my nav list. So I'll select the nav list and I'll say that the display will be set to flex. And now you see that all of my nav list items are being flexed except for the sub menus, which I want to stay as block. The next thing I want to do is select the li inside of the nav list. So I'll do nav list li. So that's basically selecting all of them. So in this case, I'll do a line height of 8 rem, which is going to be exactly the same as the navigation. The reason for that is because later on I want it to be sitting right here, so that when I do my border and my submenus, it will stay right over here at the line. And I'll make sure that it's the one directly inside of it. The next thing I want to do now is select my submenu li. So I'll select submenu li. And what I'll do here is just do half of the line height, because as you can see, it's too large and I don't want that. So line height, I'll set it to 4 rem, which looks a lot better. Then what I'll do now is make sure that all of my nav list li have a position of relative, which is something that I forgot to do here. Let me just actually get rid of it. I can do a position of relative. And now I can go ahead and just style my nav links. So I can do nav list a display. I'll set it to block. Then I'll say that the color will be set to EEE as well, just to keep the consistency going. Then I'll give it some padding left and right of 1.5 rem. Then the font size will be set to 1.4 rem, and text transform will be set to uppercase. Now I'll create a hover effect for them. So you can see it kind of looks messy, but that's because I don't have enough space. But we'll worry about that in a little bit. Actually, since I have more room to work with, I can just shrink this down and make this bigger so that you guys can see what's going on a lot better. So underneath of the styles for the nav link, I'll select the nav link again and I'll apply a hover effect. And then here I'm simply just going to change the color, which is going to be that same orange we applied to the logo. Then we want to do a transition, so we're gonna go back to the first anchor tag. We can do transition of color over 650 ms. Now you see it kind of looks better. Underneath of the hover effect, I want to select my button, so I'll do a btn. And this is going to be mostly for the styles here to the book a table and the button you see here. So padding, I'll be setting that to 1.3 rem all around. Display will be set to inline block. Then I'll do a background color of the same orange. I also want to have a border, so the border is going to be the same color, so 2 pixels solid, and then a border radius of, let's say, 5 rem. Then I can say that the transition will be set on the background color, again over 650 ms. I know it looks kind of messed up here, but don't worry about that for now. We're going to be fixing it in a little bit. Then the next thing I want to do is just set the hover effect on my button. And what I'll do here is just simply switch the color to the orange, and then I'll do the background color and set it to an RGBA of black. And then I'll do an alpha of 0.2, as you can see here. So the next step is for me to style the general submenus. So I probably should have done that before, but we'll take care of it now. And the first thing I'll do here is just give it a width of 15. Actually, I'll do 20 rem. Then what I'll do now is give it a display of block, and then a position of absolute. And as you can see, that's now looking a lot better. So the next thing I want to do now is give it a border top. Let me just see if I can find it. Border top. You can never find what you want sometimes. So border top is going to be 3 pixels. It's going to be the same orange. Then the background color will be 19, 19, 19. Next thing I want to do here is do a Z index of 100 just to make sure that it stays on top of everything else. And I also want to do a top of 16 rem just to push it down a little bit. And now that I've done that, I want to select, or in this case, I want to create the before pseudo element to create the little arrows that you could see before. So for that, I'll simply just do submenu before, and I'll set my content to, let's say, an empty string. Then I can say that the position is going to be absolute as well. Then top will be set to negative 2.5 rem. Then left will be set to 3 rem. And then the border is going to be 1.2 rem. Transparent, and let's not forget that it's going to be solid. The reason for that is because we're going to be creating the little arrow by using borders, so which in this case is going to be a triangle. So we do the shorthand first, make everything transparent, and now we can just do a border bottom color of orange. And now you see that we get the little arrow by creating it with a border. And if we didn't have transparent here, let's say that in this case we had orange as well, you'll see that we have a little box because we have bordered left, right, top, and bottom. But in this case, what we want is the bottom one to create the triangle. And that's a useful way to create a triangle if you didn't know. Next step is for us to actually add a transition to the first submenu, which is something that we forgot to do since we will be animating it. So transition will be set to all over 650 ms, and then we can just say ease. Then we can just move back down, and in here we can select the pseudo elements inside of the submenus, because in this case we want to move them to the left, right over here, and we also have to take care of the border here from the top and move it to the left as well. So what I'll do here is submenu, and then we want to target the submenus inside of the first submenu. So we do submenu twice, and let's not forget that we're doing the before, so we can just do before here. And what I'll do here is simply say that position, well, the position was already absolute, so we don't need to repeat that again. We can just simply say that we're going to move the top around to 0.9 rem, and then we can do a left of negative 2.5 rem, which is going to be basically reversing what we did here at the top to make sure that it's perfectly aligned with the border that we're going to be placing on the left. Then we can target the border. Again, we have to do this all over, so we can say 1.2 rem, solid, transparent, and then we can do border bottom color, actually not border bottom, but border right. And we can say that it's going to be the orange, and now you see that the little arrow is moving, pointing to the left. The next step is for us to actually select the submenus again. So here I can say submenu, that's submenu, and here I'll just say that the border top is going to be set to none. Then I want to apply it to the left instead, so I'll say border left. It's going to be 3 pixels, solid, orange, and now we get the border where we want it. The next thing we want to do now is actually continue to style the submenus. So what I'll do here is just make sure that the top is set to 0 because I want them to be to the right. So I'll do a left of 100%, and now you see that they're laying right over here next to each other, and they're position absolutely relative to each LI, so they kind of just lay right on top of the one that is relevant to them. Now underneath of the submenus, that submenu, what I want to do is basically say that actually, as opposed to positioning it at 100%, I want to position it further away, because remember that we're adding some animations to them. So let's say something like 160. Now I can say that whenever the nav list li hover, and then the submenu, which is going to be the first one. This is basically what it means, the one directly inside of it, the direct child descendant selector. So basically this one, nav list li, in this case this one, then we want to target the submenu that's directly followed, which is this one right here. So we want to apply the following styles, which are a top of 8 rem, which is again the same as the line height we used on the navigation. Then I can say that here the opacity is going to be set to 1. Remember that I still haven't hidden these because we want to see the styles that we are applying, as you can see over here. So as you can see, it moves up, and then over here it's just supposed to move to the left. So now we can actually go ahead and go back up to the first submenu, and what we want to do here is just say that the opacity will be set to 0 and the visibility will be set to hidden. Now we want to show it whenever we hover over this item right here. So we can say that the opacity will be set to 1 and the visibility will be set to visible, as you can see here. So now the next thing we have to do is move the submenus we have here all the way to the left. So again, let me just copy this and I'll paste it down below, and we just have to slightly modify it. So as opposed to the nav list, what we want to do is select the first submenu and then we want to style what happens to the submenus inside of it. So in this case, I want to make sure that the left will be set to 100%. And then this over here, we can just get rid of it. So if we go over here, and now we go back, actually we have to also specify the top as being 0. So if we go back, it's still not working. Let me just make sure. So let's just reverse this. And let me just paste it over here. So I can do top, left, 1 for 60. And now you see that we get the desired effect. The reason why I was having that issue is because I had it in the wrong order. So now everything works, but we still have an issue here where we have to move this all the way to the right. So we can just select the li with the class of move right, and I'll say that margin to the top will be set to auto, and then 0 on the left, actually on the right, then auto on the bottom, and then auto on the right, well, on the left. So we have a little issue right here with the alignment. So let me just see where the issue is occurring. So if we go back to the nav, if we go back, we do a display of flex, and now everything is taken care of. Now we just have to do the alignment, so we can do align items center, and then we can go back here, nav list, and there's the issue that we were having. So now that everything right here is perfectly aligned, we only have one issue, which is we have to take care of this over here. We have to make sure that the menu is more consistent, because right now it's taking the available width and height. Well, not the width and height, but the height. So let's go back down to the li with the class. Where is it? Right here. And what we can do is set the line height to initial. And now you see that it looks more consistent with the rest of the items. What we want to do now is make this responsive. So the first thing I'm going to do, again, let me just minimize this and make it so that I can see the responsive view. You see that right about 130 pixels, 830 pixels, the navigation starts to break. So I'll do a media query right about maybe 850. So let me just make this smaller now. We also might have some overflow due to the items here, as you see moving to the right. So it's a good idea if we go back to the body over here under the HTML and we target the body and we set an overflow of X to hidden. So now we don't see the horizontal lines. So as I mentioned, we're going to be building a media query right over here now. So at media screen and max width 850 pixels. What we want to do here is just do some resets of some of the styles that we applied before. So again, I'm going to target the nav list. Position in this case will be set to fixed. Top 0, then left 0. Then I'll say that the height is going to be 100 of the viewport height. Then I want to make sure that the flex direction will be set to column. Then the background color is going to be set to the same we used before, which is 1919. Next step is for us to set a C index, and we'll do like 1000. Then we'll go down here and select the nav list LI. And we'll change the line height to 6 rem. Then we're going to select the submenu, and the position is going to be set to initial. Then the border is going to be set to 3 pixels, solid, transparent, because now I want to make sure that all of my borders are on the left. So after I do that, I'll say border left color. Then I can say that the margin left will be 1 rem so that we have some spacing in between each submenu, as you can see here. So they have kind of like some sort of indentation. Now we have to get rid of the arrows, but before we do that, actually that's pretty simple. I can just say submenu before, display will be set to none. Now you see that the arrows are gone. What I want to do now is actually hide it. Well, not hide it, but I'll set the max height to 0. Next thing I'll do now, actually just make sure max height, submenu. So the next step is for me to target the nav list, then li, hover, submenu. And what I'll say here is that the opacity is always going to be 1. Then the visibility is also going to be visible right from the get-go. And then the max height is going to be initial, as you can see here. So we will continue to style the navigation. So the next step is for us to style this right here, and that's going to be pretty simple. What I'll do is just say that the li with the class of move right will have a margin of 0 auto, should be margin, not max height, 0 auto, then 0 0. Again, we have to reset the line height and set it to initial. We also have to go back up to the nav list, and I forgot that we have to reset the alignment, so I'll say that the align items going to be set to initial, so that already looks a lot better. Again, let's go back down to the move right, and what I'll do here is actually display my menu icons, and I'll just simply say display will be set to block. Now I want to hide my close icon, so I'll simply just say icon, MD arrow, actually close, and I'll say display none. So now I just have the hamburger menu. The next thing I'll do is target my navigation, and what I'll do is just say that when the navigation has the class of active, which is a class that I will be adding through JavaScript, I'll say that the close icon will be display block. And again, we can just simply copy this, paste it down below, and then I'll say that the nav icon menu is something that we want to hide. So I'll say the display will be set to none. So when we click on the hamburger menu, we will show the close icon and we will hide the hamburger menu. But once we click on the X, the hamburger menu will be shown again. So the next thing I want to do is target my styles that I'll apply to the nav list when the nav has the class of active. So nav list is just going to say display flex. And now the only thing we have to do is hide the nav list. So for that, we can just simply say that display will be set to none. So the only thing we have to do now is take care of the click events. And that's going to be pretty simple. As you've seen me used in the past, we can create a function that is going to select the elements. Then I can say that we want to pass in the element. It's going to be an arrow function. And what I'll do here is document that query selector, and we'll pass in element. So now we can go ahead and target the hamburger menu. So we can say select element, and in here we're just going to select the menu icons. And we want to say that when the menu icons are clicked, so we're going to add an event listener. So when the menu icons are clicked, we want to basically select the nav, and we want to toggle the class. We want to make sure that we toggle the class list, and we add or remove the class of active. So there's some confusion that I do get often, and that's like sometimes a lot of you guys will include this you see right here, element and token, but that's not part of the JavaScript. It's simply a reference. So if I comment that out, you'll see that it's going to be gone. It's because it's not part of the code. Again, it's a reference that you don't need to include. You only need to include what you see right here. So let me uncomment that. And now we should check that the click event works. And as you can see here, everything works. And we get the sub menu. But there's an issue. So if we go into the inspector and we try out smaller screens, well, screens that aren't as high, so we can say, for example, small phone like an iPhone SE. As you can see here, when we click, when we have the menu, actually, where's this closing? So let me just make sure that I go back. So menu, the href, I don't see what the issue here is, but it shouldn't be closing. Seems like it's closing whenever I click on the nav list. So let me make sure that I didn't mess anything up here. So right over here is the possible issue. Let me now double check, because it should be a dot. And yes, that was the issue. So as you can see here, for example, if we try out a smaller screen and then we go ahead and open the rest of them, if you notice, we can't scroll down to see the rest of it, what the rest of the navigation is. So we have to go back into the CSS and we have to add to the nav list overflow Y of scroll. So now we're going to get a scroll bar. So as you can see now, we can see the rest of the content. So yeah guys, that's going to be pretty much it for this video. I hope you found it useful and learned something new. So if you found the video useful, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below. So that's going to be it. I'll catch you guys in the next one.